Welcome. Tonight is our virtual movie discussion night with the Wisconsin Veterans Museum. Thank you everybody for joining us on this, at least where I'm at tonight, a really nice evening as we've been braving horrific weather for the past few days. It's finally cleared up and everything's going. Before we get started, I'd just like to say a special thank you to the Wisconsin Veterans Museum Foundation for their continued support. They are the ones who are responsible for all of the free programming that we get to put on at the museum, to include movie nights like this. And I also would like to say thank you to our sponsor, Generac Power Systems, for their continued support as well. Without those two entities, we would not be able to continue on with our virtual programming. So welcome everybody. Tonight we are here to talk about movies, and in particular, we're here to talk about the 2014 movie, The Keeping Room. This movie was directed by Daniel Barber. This is only his second full-length movie that he ever directed. So he was most notably known as a commercial director. Over 500 commercials, if I'm not mistaken. But he broke into film, and so this was the second full-length feature that he did. He did do a small, shorter movie that did receive some acclaim called Henry's Room. But I have not seen that one. And also, speaking of, breaking through into feature motion pictures, cinematographer as well, Martin Rue. This was his, I think, only second or third feature-length motion picture. He was most notably known for his music videos. So we have a real, I guess, rookie crew here directing and running the cameras tonight for this movie. Also, this movie stars Britt Marley as Augusta. Haley Steinfeld, who you might remember from True Grit, the 2012 version, if I'm not mistaken. Also Sam Worthington as Moses. And of course, we've seen him in Avatar, and we're about to see him in Avatar Part 2 coming out, which I'm really excited about. And also Clash of the Titans and Wrath of the Titans. And then also, and I hope I'm saying her name correctly as well, Muna Otaru. And she was the character of Mad in the film, The Slave. And she's most noted for her TV presentations. She has done some small acting in films to include this one, but most notably for her TV work. This movie was filmed entirely in Bucharest, Romania, believe it or not, between June and July of 2013. It was produced by Wind Dancer Productions and Summit Entertainment, and distributed by Draft House and Lionsgate Films. It was released here in the US on September 25th of 2015. And maybe somebody caught these numbers as they were looking through. I couldn't find them anywhere of what kind of budget they had for this movie. And maybe they were keeping that secret because of the box office receipts. This movie could not have broken even by any stretch of the imagination. Here in the US, it bankrolled about $27,000, and then internationally about $37,000. For a net of about $64,000. I'm sure Sam Worthington's fee for starring in this film alone was far more than that. So this film could not have broken even by any standards at all. And then just quickly, as we always do when we start the program, we'll just go through everybody and see how they like the film. Sally, we'll start with you on the end tonight. You're on my far right. So we'll start with you. What did you think of the movie, Sally?
It was eerie. The cinematography, I paid attention to it this time, nice. And it made it a very, very eerie movie for me. It was more like a suspense thriller. I wasn't really enjoying it because I was waiting to see what they do to the girls next, the women next. The men were so mean. And it was overall not enjoyable to me. It was just too creepy and just a hard one to watch. I think because of the shooting that just occurred and with the war in the Ukraine, I can only imagine what's going on in people's lives, and it just wasn't enjoyable.
Yeah, and that's excellent to make that connection, especially with what's going on in Ukraine. I'm sure there's situations arising, that are similar to this, with the men being gone. And just the women left to protect, whatever kind of home front they have. Lisa, how did you like the film?
I'm going to echo somewhat what Sally said. It wasn't enjoyable. not that I didn't get anything out of it, and I did like
Right.
the cinematography, but the brutality at the beginning set the tone. Just the indiscriminate brutality set the tone for me, because like I was just anticipating that type of ugliness throughout the whole
Yes.
thing. And I don't know, maybe if, you know, I'm just going to say it, maybe if you're male and you watch action movies or something like that. I personally don't watch a lot of movies, and and something like this that starts, it's like, it's just heavy. It's just like, it's scary, it's nerve-wracking to, because you put yourself in those people's places, and it's like, oh my God, what's gonna happen to her next? What's gonna happen? It's just, oh, it's nerve-wracking.
Yes.
And I'm sorry again. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name, Magdalena. Did I not get it right again?
Mariana.
Mariana. I'm going to write that down so I don't forget. How did you enjoy the film?
Muted.
Oh, Mariana, you're muted. Sorry. There you go.
I agree with Sally and Lisa. If you look at it from art perspective, like it's like a good book, you read the book, you can find almost nothing wrong, like it's done. But as somebody, like for entertainment, it's just, as she said, it's heavy and realistic, and it's like, wow, I wouldn't like to be at that time a woman. Like, no. So it's good, but it's not entertainment, so to speak.
Sure, I can understand that. And then lastly, Chris.
Yeah, I might be my odd person out here. I don't know. I thought this was the kind of movie that drew me in. It took a while to get used to it. And I think a lot of it had to do with how much silence was used in the movie to deal with various scenes. I got the DVD, and the DVD comes with a 12-page booklet about the movie. And as I was reading the booklet, several things struck me about it. One was that the editor of the movie was also the editor for a movie called Children of Men, which is an extremely good movie, very dystopian. And that led me to the realization, which I had not come to before, about all of the movies that we watch when we see these war movies. And also I didn't really think this was a war movie per se. In fact, it's described on the DVD jacket as a Western set in the war.
Okay.
But it struck me that all of the movies we're seeing are dystopian movies. I mean, war itself is a dystopian environment. And once I realized that, I had a bit of a different perspective on the movie. The other thing that struck me was, and this may sound a bit odd, I don't know if any of you ever watch Hallmark Channel movies at all.
I try. I've been trying to cut back.
Okay.
So it's been a while.
They're basically the romance movies. They're all Cinderella story type movies. New Yorker did an article about Hallmark Channel and said that all Hallmark movies have 11 plot points that all occur in a sequence at specific points within the movie. And as I watched this movie, I thought, this is a reverse Hallmark. It has all these plot points, but they're the reverse of what these happy-go-lucky Hallmark movies are. It's a very negative version of that. In the Hallmark movies, you have what they call the meet cute moment, when the two people meet and don't realize they're right for each other. And so the whole movie is about them coming to realize at the end that they're right for each other. In this one, you have a meet ugly moment when Augusta meets the people she's ultimately going to come to deal with at the end in a very ugly moment. So it occurred to me that this was kind of a reverse Hallmark movie. Very negative, very dark.
I can see how it would be framed like that for sure.
very, very dark. I really thought that the location manager did a terrific job on this, you know. And what I learned in the booklet, which is not clear at all from any of the stuff that I read elsewhere, is that the entire set was constructed from scratch.
Yeah.
The auction house, the farmhouse, the keeping room, the whole thing. And I had thought that that was something that Location Scout had come up with. But I liked the movie in the sense that it kept my attention. It's a difficult movie to watch. I have sort of a category of good movies I never want to see again because of the way they come across. And this is kind of in that category.
Yeah, you talk about location manager. I was quite surprised to find out that they went all the way to Romania to film this. You know, and I'm sure that cut into their production value as well. I don't know. I assume they could easily film this on a back lot, or maybe some place in Arkansas or Tennessee, somewhere that has tax breaks for, you know, film production. But they decided to ship it all the way to Romania and film it over there. Okay, strange choice, at least as far as I'm concerned. And I do agree with you. I thought I categorized this as a 2-half movie. And I see this quite a bit. The first half was extremely difficult to watch, not only because of the brutality, but because of the silence. And I really had to stay with it. I really had to focus myself. Once it got to the second half of the movie, it picked up a little bit, and I was able to become, you know, a little more engaged. But the first half of the movie really left me wanting a lot more. And there were several times when I just almost gave up and I shut it off. I couldn't suffer anymore. Fortunately, like I said, it did pick up in the second half. And then the brutality, yeah, like Sally and Lisa described, and Mariana as well. It starts off with just mindless killing, in a very grotesque fashion. I have difficulty with that. I love war movies, and I can stand to see armies doing things to other armies, but for individual people to be doing things like that to other individuals in such a personal and upfront manner, I have difficulty with that. And that kind of brings me to my opening question. The very opening sequence of the film was a quote by William Tecumseh Sherman. Although it's not the full quote, it's kind of an encapsulated quote or capsulized rendition of the quote itself. But it says, "War is cruelty. There's no use in trying to refine it. The crueler it is, the sooner it will be over." And I want to know if everybody, what are your thoughts on that quote? Do you think that's true? The sooner that you are crueler and more punishing to your enemy, the sooner they'll relent and give in, and we can finish the conflict?
Can I interrupt for a moment?
Sure.
I think Lisa had a point she wanted to make earlier. You had your hand up.
I'm sorry, I didn't see
No,
that, Lisa. My fault.
I just thought he explained that ending well. Like, it just is. I have a hard time with that mindless brutality. When that happens, like, it like goes in my core, and it's like I just have a hard time. And then I put myself there and think, how could I live in that constant fear? It's just like this constant fear. So I was just saying I agree.
So yeah, that quote that they brought up, does everybody think that that's true? Do you think that is the way that we should look at our conflicts and advance them?
Well, if you think logically, by cruel, you mean you just go and kill everybody and just install fear. So then, yeah, there is a high chance that it will be over. You just eliminate whatever population your enemy. That's it. It's simple as that. I also think that, well, I wasn't born in US, so I went through 2 countries. So I think living in US for a while, I got spoiled because I'm younger generation, so we don't we don't live in the times when we have really lack of food, lack of real, like fear of real war. We have very comfortable lives. We don't know what survival really is. And back in that time, their lives were brutal in many other ways, even before
Valid
the war.
point.
So, you know, even like I'm thinking, just living in the, starting from, like you don't have toilet inside the house, you have to do manual work. There was slavery, like a lot of things. And then you have war, and there is no Me Too movement, there is no what's right and wrong, women were the property. All this thing, it's different perception in life. So for us, it's brutal. For 200 years ago, well, it's reality of life, like nature. You know, you got eaten, got killed, got beaten, got raped. And if you talk to a female or just the person 200 years ago, when you say war, it means you are going to be probably raped, robbed, probably killed. You will see horrible, horrible things that for us now is like, wow, it's so cruel. It's not cruel, it was life.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I say that all the time when I talk about, you know, just certain conflicts in history and how it's judged by historical standards. And you cannot take modern perceptions and put them on past events.
Exactly.
You can't look at things that way because it's impossible. So I absolutely agree with you, Mariana. And if I could just mention as well, medicine at this time, they were operating under basically the same precepts as the Romans.
Yeah.
Medicine had not advanced. So when Louise gets a raccoon bite, you know, this is a deathly thing. This is, you know, we'll be lucky if she survives from a simple raccoon bite. Yeah.
All of us think it was like rabies. If she gets rabies, she's dead anyway. Like that's all I was thinking at that moment.
Anybody else want to throw in a thought on that opening quote?
Well, it strikes me that if that quote were true, we wouldn't have war at this point, because each war seems to get more cruel, more devastating, and yet we continue to have them. I mean, the one thing that seems kind of odd to me is that we try to make war more antiseptic, and we do that now with drones. I mean, they try to reduce the casualties of our soldiers at the expense of their civilians. And so if it were in fact that the more cruel war gets, the less likely it is to occur, I just don't see that.
Yeah. Just looking at it from a historical perspective, I don't agree with that quote at all. I think the crueler you are, the more resolve you give your enemy, the more they will want to resist. It's been shown time and time again throughout the historical record, and we're seeing it right now unfolding in Ukraine. Russia's being extremely cruel to the Ukrainian population, and it's only deepening their resolve. It's only making them want to fight harder, and they're not going to back off. So unfortunately, I would have to disagree with Sherman's quote. But like Mariana said, though, I kind of agree with her too. This was life for these people. Although it did become a little crueler, a little more barbaric once you see things like these bummers coming into their state and just basically the advanced patrol, the forward unit, doing what they want without any sort of repercussion whatsoever. But still, I can't see that breaking people's backs and just making them succumb at all.
I have a question.
Sure, Chris.
In that regard, as somebody, this is probably within your domain, was there even a concept of war crimes at that point?
My first inclination is to say no, not really. You know, there's definitely no Geneva Convention. There's no, you know, international standards. I'm trying to think of even just any instance on where even that phrase would come up. And I just, my inclination is to say no. There's no such thing as, war crimes, rape, murder, torture for information. All these things were legitimate actions to pursue your course of war. So yeah, I'd have to say no. I'm trying to. I had a lot of questions.
Thank you.
No problem, Sally. I'm glad you got them again. The next one I talk about, though, is just the women themselves, and I titled this section "Life Without Men." This is just the women trying to deal with everything on their own, and like Mariana was saying, they're trying to run the farm. They're trying to raise the crops. They're trying to fend for themselves. They're trying to take care of themselves altogether. And it doesn't seem like they're having much success. Some, but not much. But how does each woman cope with their situation? And I would say, roughly within the first 20 minutes, the film really hits on that. But and I just want to know what everybody else saw.
I think Augusta's she's stepped up to the plate, and kind of being the matriarch or patriarch. She's gonna kind of be leading everybody, keeping an eye out on everything. Mad, she kind of revealed later in the movie how she feels. It happens and you kind of move on. You have to keep living. You just almost step over the body and keep doing, and that's how you keep sanity and just keep doing. And then Luisa, she was kind of bucking everything at the beginning and being like the spoiled little child who couldn't see what was going on and just wanted to exercise her will. So that's how they came off to me at the most.
A reviewer on RogerEbert.com described Louise as kind of a Scarlett O'Hara type.
Yep.
Still living in her fantasy world, still waiting for the slaves to take care of her. Not really realizing yet that you're on your own now, and even with your slave there, your slave's not going to take care of you because for all intents and purposes, she's emancipated at this point. She's a driver of circumstances just like everybody else.
And Augusta at one point kind of hints that it goes the other direction as well, that the two Louise and Augusta have been enslaved when she refers to we're all now.
Exactly.
Yeah. I thought that was kind of a powerful quote, to be honest.
I thought it was excellent.
Yeah, I was surprised. I was a little shocked when she said that. I had to go back and listen to it again. And I was like, yeah, that's some great writing right there. Unfortunately, you can't get around using that one particular word, but that was a good line in the script for sure.
And over time, that word has evolved to relate to African Americans, but originally it was a derogatory word for anyone that was considered a lower level than you.
Moving from the women, now I want to kind of move to the men. What type of men do you think Moses and Henry are? And I go on to ask a little bit more. Do you think that their actions are fueled by what? Revenge, power? I mean, obviously they're drunkards, or at least Henry is for sure. Moses doesn't come across that way too much. Moses just seems mean-spirited. But what kind of men are these? And I'll preface that a little bit more by saying I was kind of shocked. I didn't realize, and maybe I just wasn't paying enough attention, but I didn't realize till maybe halfway through the film that these were Northerners.
Yes, that shocked me. I was surprised to see Union soldiers portrayed as dirtballs, evil dirtballs, but they certainly were portrayed that way. And I think it's almost like the guy said at the beginning, I became a monster. So once I was a monster, I just stayed a monster. War kind of made him crazy. So he just stayed crazy and did evil things because it was okay, because he's a soldier and he could get away with it.
Yeah,
and
like
he's
And like Chris
enemy
brought up, you know,
territory.
there's no law, there's no guidelines, there's no
Right.
repercussions. You are
Mhm.
in pitched combat. You're
Mhm.
you're in a war. Your actions are, you know, you can write them off easily enough.
Right. Right.
I have some,
Go ahead.
go ahead, Lisa.
Okay. I guess giving them the benefit of the doubt that it was war that turned them and the harshness, but I don't know.
Right.
They seemed ugly to the core. I mean,
You really were.
They came into war that way already, Lisa?
yeah, I think they had it, and I think they kind of selected that or put in for that job. I don't know how they got that particular job, but so that they could go off by themselves and kind of wreak havoc. But they seemed, even the way that he talked to Augusta at the end was
Mhm.
like deceitful to me. Like he was
Yes.
trying, I felt like he was trying to lure her in and let her
Mhm.
guard down, and it was just,
Yeah. Yeah.
it was really creepy to me. So, and to take every advantage you can to rape people and every advantage you can to shoot people in the back or the head, or I don't know. I just feel that's, it didn't feel like pressure. It felt like just ugliness.
Right.
And I think that came from within.
I
Fair
agree.
enough.
I have some recollection that the Civil War was described as the first total war. That basically unrestrained by any kind of Marquis of Queensberry kind of rules. The you know, the American Revolution, where you know, there was sort of a, there almost seemed to be, in comparison, certain like gentlemen's agreements about how they were going to fight. But that all broke down in the Civil War, and set the stage for the way wars were fought in the future, like World War I, where they just threw men into the meat grinder in a way that they hadn't done in the past, I think, and that might have been people going into this war thinking it was going to be different from what it actually turned out to be. That they had images of war from previous times that totally broke down.
The romanticized version of war.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it doesn't help too when you have your commander saying things like war is cruel, and the crueler you are, the sooner it's going to be over with. That filters down to the troops' ears. They hear that, and especially during this time, I don't want to certainly disparage anybody, but these were a lot of country bumpkins, a lot of them. Not a lot of education, not a lot of creative thinking. And so if you have your commander tell you something like that, that must be the way it is. That's how we're going to conduct ourselves.
Given that this was part of the Sherman's March to the Sea, it was
actually this was a year. This was supposed to be set a year later than that.
Oh,
during
really?
the Carolinas campaign of 1865.
Oh.
And I actually had to go look that up because I thought it was part of Sherman's March to the Sea too. And what these guys are doing, they're called bummers. And they go ahead of the army and they scout out where the good crops are at, where the good houses are at to be barracked or set up headquarters. This is their advanced guard. This is their eyes, their intelligence gatherers. And so this is what these guys are doing. This is their job. And there's many more out there too. Not just these two. These two are set on this road. There's others that are set on that road. There's others that are set on this road. So there's a bunch of these guys out here doing this exact same thing. This isn't just focused on two people. There's hundreds probably out there acting just like this and taking the war to the Southerners just the way they do.
It didn't feel like they were doing their job then. The whole time we saw them, they weren't doing much of collecting data and
no, they were staying near the brothel and near the booze and just making sure that they were satisfied.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How then would they get the information back to the other troops? Because they didn't even have horses.
I'm sure they probably started off with horses, maybe couriers. I don't think that they were using pigeons or anything like that during this time. And there might have been certain drop-off points too where they could leave messages, although I'm not so sure about that. But that is a good question, Lisa. How do you get this information back? You're out there supposed to be gathering this. How do you get it back to the troops, your commander, especially when you're so deep in enemy territory? That is a very good point. And I wish I had a better answer for you. I'm sorry, I don't. We kind of covered that. I was going to ask about Augusta, asked Moses later on in the film why he attacks him like he wants more, like he wants a war. And Moses replies, he doesn't know how to stop. But we did kind of cover that. These guys have, and it's been debated back and forth between some of you. But, according to them, war has had an effect on them. And this is the effect that we're seeing in this film. I don't know. I could definitely see it. We see that, basically in all wars. We even see it in our current conflicts, places like Abu Ghraib. You see people taking wars to extreme levels, doing extreme things to people that maybe they normally would not do previously. War does have an effect on the psyche, on your mentality, and on your constitution. So I can't say that that's wrong, that he doesn't know how to stop. I just can't put myself in those kinds of shoes. I can't visualize that. Can't mentally put myself there.
I think there is also an issue that it gives power to the soldier that maybe in the peacetime there were like servants, or maybe because Augusta, Lois seems like they have slaves, so it's a bit a higher level society, and the soldier may be somebody who was, like a little bit lower class. But in the war, it changes. It gives them the power suddenly to rape the woman that in other time he wouldn't be able even to look at. So it's kind of this power, maybe it corrupts people, and man suddenly he feels that he can do whatever he wants. And maybe it's also hard to stop, because now you can do whatever you want, because here is the situation, it's war. I can kill you, I can rape you, I can do whatever I want. And it kind of gets out the bad of people, like the worst qualities and tendency that you have in such situation. You become a monster. It's much harder to stop.
I think that's a great point. That's a very good point, Mariana.
Which part, Lisa? Because I was going to chime in on that as well.
That they might have come from a lower place and now they've achieved this power over things, and that it's a kind of a greed, a lust for greed.
Intoxicating.
Yeah.
Intoxicating.
Yeah. I thought Mariana's point, where she mentioned a word that really sparked my interest: hierarchy. And once again, we have to put ourselves kind of in a mental place where they were at this time. They did have slaves. There were, social statuses and social classes, slaves, women, men, soldiers, and it goes in all various orders. That's not something that we really have to deal with nowadays. So it's kind of lost on us. We maybe kind of forget that, this was the mentality of the thinking back then. And so, I don't know, it's just, when you said hierarchy, Mariana, it just kind of reminded me of that. And it kind of just emphasized what you were trying to say there.
Sort of like that experiment that was done with the prisoners, turning, some people were prisoners and some people were the students who, when some were classified as prisoners, others were classified as the jailers. And the jailers began to accrete this notion of, I've got more power than you, even though they both came from the same place. And it had to do with, like Mariana says, this hierarchy that gets constructed. I mean, these hierarchies are all social constructs. They aren't anything inherent in nature. But we create these hierarchies, and then people act accordingly.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that, Chris. And I do remember reading about that, those studies in university about the jailers and the prisoners, and how just that title or that position does affect how you act or react to certain things, for sure. I want to make sure this conversation is going really quick with only 5 of us on. This is fantastic, but I just want to make sure that we cover at least as many bases as possible. And one question I want to throw out there, I might not be the popular one for asking this, but nobody really seems to like Moses during the film. And I found it kind of interesting, Chris, that you brought up the Hallmark movies. I saw the relationship between Augusta and Moses, and she even says it at the end. I kind of saw it as maybe like a romance starting to bloom a little bit, although it was just the wrong circumstances, the wrong time. And she even says at the end, or no, Moses says, just before she shoots him, he says, you know, something to the effect of, maybe had this been in a different time. And Augusta says, yeah, but it's not. And she pulls the trigger. But right, Sally? But I saw Moses as being attracted to her and trying to, I guess, for lack of a better term, win her over, win her affections. And I was just curious if anybody else saw that, or if I was just, maybe I'm just been lonely too long. I don't know.
Well, from the first thing I thought when he started, I was screaming BS in my brain. Don't fall for it. Don't fall for it. He's yanking your chain to get something out of you. And he has not changed a bit. He's going to get something and then he'll throw you away like he did everything else that he messed up in this movie. So when she shot him, I think that was the ultimate screw you. You know, I've heard enough of you, bam. That's just my perception.
Anybody else have a thought on that? Go ahead, Mariana.
I just think I don't remember if the movie really gives I understood that Augusta, Louise, they're kind of like, again, very rich or something upper class, and it's not clear when the models come from, like, but they're both he's more sophisticated than the other guy. So he knows how to talk, he knows how to behave. Maybe he's bad person, mean, well, terrible. But in the end of the day, he's intelligent. And he's not like a simple, you know, simple guy somewhere like Henry. That just goes and rape Louise. This guy is really seducing her, trying to manipulate her. And she's also not a simple girl. She's more smarter, sophisticated. I mean, so maybe their background were kind of more similar, maybe in a different life what he meant, but in the end, they were just fighting for their lives, and he had to manipulate her somehow, and you know, like save himself. And good that she didn't, you know, she didn't trust him.
Well, in that one part of the movie, Mad, she was having that talk with Mad, and it sounded like she hadn't been with men before. And so maybe she was kind of intrigued by him and the way he was kind of, like Mariana said, kind of seducing her, and she was getting.
Yeah, maybe she wasn't, because he maybe thought back then, if you were not married, means you're a virgin, you don't know how to deal with a man, you know, protected lifestyle before the war. And so he was thinking like a man who knows ways with women. And we see he was in the brothel. I think he was in the brothel, yes, with the other girl. And so maybe he thought he can kind of like convince her, or, you know, but yeah, she was smart enough to realize that he's just tricking her. Or
it was a little, yeah, tricking her. It was a little hard to believe, though, to be shot and hit with a rifle and everything, and you're still gonna be just desiring this woman. I mean,
Oh, you have no idea how men work, Lisa.
really? I guess I don't. I guess I don't, because I felt like he was like on the brink of death, and he just kept on coming.
That's one of our more uncharacter or our more unsavory traits, at least as far as we're concerned. We will go through hell and
Yeah.
still smile and bring you flowers.
I thought that deep down that Moses respected her for her grit, for her survival instincts. I mean, you kind of got that. I kind of got that sense at the auction house scene where she basically escapes them and holds him at rifle point. And he's very careful not to upset her any more than she already is. And he actually, I mean, he had the drop on her. I mean, he could have gotten her. I don't think there was any question about that, but he didn't. And even told Henry, back off at one point. So I think there was something about her that intrigued him, even though he was still on this rampage. And I think that kind of showed up at that scene at the end where she finally shoots him when he makes that point about in a different time, in a different place, and she says, "But it isn't."
Yeah. Click. And I do want to talk real quick about a strange addition to the movie that the whole movie probably could have gone on just fine without the character of Bill, Mad's boyfriend or husband. I'm not quite sure which it was. But he ends up getting shot by Augusta as he's I guess he's creeping around, maybe trying to help. Wrong place, wrong time, sort of thing. But they end up burying Moses, Henry, and Bill all in the same hole. And there was some rationale behind it, but I want to get everybody's opinion on what they thought of that. I was a little put off, honestly.
Yeah,
Even after the rationale was given, I was a little put off by that.
not put off. It was so symbolic to me. Like the whole movie was about war and men fear, but this was like the women bury all the men. They just kill everybody. Doesn't matter who it belongs to, black, white, whatever. Just kill all of them and be done.
Enemy, friends.
Kind of like feminist, and I was thinking like, well, I was sure this is like female director would do. Yes, let's finish all of them. So yeah, I agree. It kind of was out like, and why would this story with the bill was a bit like out of the whole thing, but I don't know, maybe not sure what was the intention there.
And Mariana, then they dressed as men.
Yes,
Walked away and walked away into the sunset,
Totally girl power movies. Like, yes, we don't need you.
So what I'm hearing is, at least from the female side of the house, those last 15 minutes were just right on for you.
Yes,
much better. Yes. The burial thing, I could see. I was like, oh, putting him in the hole with those two yucky guys. But practicality wise, but oh my gosh, seriously, they dug that humongous lake-sized hole. Really? That was like a little far-fetched. I'm like, where was the backhoe for that?
They didn't even dig that big a hole at Goodfellas.
No.
Well, that may have just been a symbolic of their fury, that they wanted to bury him so deep.
And so neatly, it was so clean and neat and.
Yeah, why not actually leave them as it is? Why to bury them at all? Like, okay, her boyfriend Bill, but the other two, why would they bother? Like, oh, whatever.
Right, Mariana, they could have left him in the burning house, right?
Yes.
Yeah, cremate him.
So it was symbolic. Maybe he wanted like to make a point. We are getting rid of men. Done.
Yeah.
And the next question I ask is what was symbolic about burning the house down themselves? But maybe that wasn't the symbolic gesture. Maybe the symbolic gesture was that hole and putting all three of them in that hole. Maybe I missed the point on that.
To burn in the end. Burn the previous system, previous life, just not to leave anything for because they knew the army is coming. So, okay,
Yeah.
you will get nothing out of me. You will not get even the property out of me. You definitely not
I
get
agree.
any roof from me, nothing, just nothing. Burn everything and like, cut it
agree.
off. That's it, you're done. Done with
agree.
men, done with house, done with everything.
Yep, I agree. I took it the same way, Mariana. I thought it was just, we're done, we're out of here. You're not getting anything. Although I don't understand, well, yes, I do. I think they put on the men's clothes to survive because they knew you tended to see the men being better off than the women in one aspect.
I
So
was
maybe,
a little surprised they didn't cut their hair though.
true, very good point.
It doesn't matter how many men's clothes you put on. Once you put that hat on, if you still have your long locks pouring out from underneath it,
Yeah,
that'd
kind of a giveaway.
Yeah. Moving on to the filmmaking aspects of it, I can't remember, somebody brought this up earlier about just how sparse it looked and how plain and barren the film was cast as. And I just want to get everybody's thoughts on that. I asked about the production designer, Caroline Anina, and her concept of a sparse, backdrop. There wasn't a whole lot of set design. Chris mentioned that they built all the sets from scratch, but what was it? 1, 2, 3
buildings.
3 buildings?
Well, there was the auction house, there was the farmhouse itself, and then there was the separate building, which I think was supposed to be the keeping room.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I want to get to that real quick too. But what did everybody did it affect the way you judged or viewed the film, or do you think that just the story overshadowed all that, and it just kind of lent itself to the character of the movie of itself?
I didn't
Go ahead,
feel
Lisa.
that. I didn't feel it was barren. It didn't feel that way to me, but I did feel it was desolate. Like it was so quiet and there wasn't any other people around, and it just had this haunting, desolate feel to it. But I want to get this in. I know I'm interrupting, but
No,
there
no,
were things
not at
that
all.
the whole was hokey to me. Finding that little piece of rectangular fabric on the tree. Oh, this is the direction we go. I was
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, are you serious? That
Oh,
was
I didn't catch that.
Yeah, 5 feet above the dog, and the dog's sitting there barking at it, and yeah,
yeah.
I thought that was a little corny myself.
Yeah, and then like Chris said that it was suspenseful, and it kind of had one of those horror movie things where she left him there wounded, not dead, and I was just going, did she shoot him? I didn't hear her shoot him. I don't think he's dead. He's gonna show up again.
Just you expend one more bullet, put it in his head and end it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to get those in before we ran out of time.
Well, Lisa, I have to agree with you on another point. I kept thinking of zombie movies with all those funny looking corpses. I'm like, is this supposed to be a zombie?
I got one more. Why, when you have protection, why would you go out to where the danger is and try to find it? Why wouldn't you stay where you have shelter and protection and let it come to you and take it out?
That makes for a short movie, Lisa.
Couple flaws. You know what struck me as odd? Their bedroom. I'm used to these southern houses with the nice big beds, these all, and here they're sleeping in these little old cot-like beds. And then the slave is in the room with them, which I thought was very peculiar. I don't know, that was just an oddity to me.
I thought that was kind of symbolic of their their mutual survival needs.
Okay, good point.
Good point. The whole movie is a survival movie. I mean, that's really what it is.
You're right. You're right.
And so we're getting different versions of what amounts to survival. I mean, I think from the Henry's and Moses's point of view, what they were doing was survival, awful survival, but from their point of view, survival. And what the women were doing was survival from their point of view.
Mm-hmm.
I would definitely have to. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Chris.
They were just better at it. the women.
Yeah. And I would agree with you about that. When it comes to the slave, and Sally was wondering why the slave was sleeping in the room there, you know, they were all in this together. You know, they were all eating out of the same pot. They're all sleeping.
Yes,
in the
that's
same
true
place.
too.
And-
Same ladle.
And Augusta, when or maybe it was, I think it was Augusta when she said something, oh no, the slave smacked her.
Yeah.
And Augusta basically took it as, you know, I probably deserved that.
Yes, that was interesting.
Yeah.
I think back to Lisa's point about the desolation. I mean, one of the things that struck me very early on was whenever they went into the house, to the mansion, whatever, farmhouse, at night, it was very clear, and the set designer apparently, or whoever did this, wanted it this way, wanted recognition of what it was like in a pre-electricity era. So you get the lamps, you get the you know, that candle that always was sitting there just on that table. I mean, like, is somebody going to use that? Is somebody going to light it? It was sort of like symbolic again of the era they were in, and I thought they did a very good. I thought the set designer did a very good job, and the costumer too of capturing that whole thing.
I kind of got that same feel, Chris, with the auction house.
Yeah.
I was like, when you see her walk in for the very first time, I was like, that's what it was like. That's what walking into a building during the Civil War in the South was like. One, maybe two people sitting there, somebody asleep at the bar, no sound, no, you know, just the light only coming in through the windows, bugs all around. I think you're right. They did a good job as far as that goes. I still say barren. I just really, there was nothing there to focus on. And maybe, you know, that's a good thing because you're not supposed to be focusing on the background. You're supposed to be focusing on the story and the characters. This film was shot completely with natural light. They brought in no outside lights, and I thought that really showed. I was wondering the first time that I watched it, I was like, did they shoot this all natural lighting? And I don't think it was 100%, but most of it was shot with natural lighting, especially all the outdoor scenes. There was no extra lighting that they used at all. And then just lastly, I want to know, do you think the film maybe would have been better served by adding another 15 minutes and showing what happened to the women after they burned down the house and took off? You don't think so?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Not at all. No.
That was closure enough right there. Everybody's good. Huh?
It's totally Hollywood take. Let's show the happy end, or no.
I agree.
Like in life, you don't know what she chose. You don't know what will happen. Just leave it at that. This was not, the movie's point is not to show their lives specifically for Augusta or Louisa. It's symbolic to a certain situation at war and to show brutality, whatever everybody takes their own, but it's not about them specifically. So it would have ruined the whole movie. I'm always rating, when I see the movie, I'm always rating Saturday Night IMDb, but I was always rating, and I would say it for me, it's like close to 9, like 8.5. And if it was this like happy end, it would be like 6 or 5.
It would have reduced the value totally for you, huh? Okay.
Yes.
Valid.
No, fair enough. Maybe I'm the curious sort. I'd like to see, you know, like I said, I got into it in the second half of the film. So by the time the film was coming to an end, I kind of wanted a little more. So maybe I just wanted to see, you know, what happened afterwards.
Important, make you think. What would you think should have happened, and like left it to the fantasy.
No?
Fair
enough.
Well, the thing that struck me about that final scene, as the soldiers are coming up on the burning farmhouse and they're walking away, that as the soldiers were coming up, and I had this image of ants
So did I.
coming across the field toward some kind of prey looking, and that's what made me wonder about why the women dressed as men weren't moving faster, given their experience with the Union soldiers they'd already had. And that was kind of what, so I was kind of wondering what did happen to them after this. I didn't think it was going to be a happy ending. I thought it was going to be more like, you're trying to escape us. Here's your reward. And it was
Right,
not very
right, right.
Yeah, I had the same feeling, Chris, when they showed the Union soldiers coming through the field there, and it was like they were almost appearing out of nowhere. And
Yeah.
that was the first image
The
I had in my head
zombies.
was ants.
Yeah.
We only have a couple minutes left. I'll get to my question that I ask every time, aside from the opening question of how people like the film. Who was your favorite character and why? Mariana, you're on my far right now, so we'll start with you and work our way to the left.
Of course, Augusta. I
Augusta,
mean,
okay.
he's a strong person. And of course, as a female, I prefer to identify as a female, So I can identify with somebody, one of these men. So Augusta, Louisa is just too weak, and Mad is kind of, I couldn't connect to her. So of course her.
Okay.
Easy.
Sally?
I actually have to say I like Mad. I think her character survived an awful childhood and slavery and everything else. She was still had a good soul. And I can't imagine being treated so poorly and turning out to be a good soul and actually helping those people who had probably mistreated her at one point. So I would say the actress did a good job portraying a caring soul. So I choose Mad.
Okay. Lisa, you're next.
I had a hard time choosing. I agree with Sally about Mad. She was practical. She was steady. She gave a lot of wisdom. She was out there working, and she just was always there to with the leg and everything. But I do agree with Mariana too that it was a little hard for me to connect with her. Because she was so steady, she didn't have any passion to her. And I guess that's a lot of passion to her. And so
yeah,
I like that character, Augusta.
Chris?
I have to go with Mad. I thought that like Sally, Mad having that background that she had, and particularly when she does that little soliloquy about having been raped so many times over and over and over again. The fact that she could come through like that and not appear to have any animosity towards somebody like Augusta or Louise was rather amazing. But the other character that kind of I wondered about, it wasn't so much a favorite character, but I wondered about, was the woman at the auction house who helped Augusta. And I mean, her motivation seemed to be that I knew your father and he was a good man or something like that. But she goes like extra steps to protect Augusta by, doing that stuff with Henry and then urging Augusta to go upstairs and escape and so on. So I thought that character was in some ways kind of critical to getting the story to move forward, because without her doing that, who knows what would have happened to Augusta.
Yeah, no, you're right. I will say, what is her name? Oh, Louise. I'll say Louise, simply because I like Haley Steinfeld as an actress. I am a huge fan of her in True Grit. When I saw her in True Grit, I was blown away by her acting skills. They really don't come out as significant in this film. Although there's some spots where you can tell that there's some really fine acting coming out of her. And because I'm an animal lover, although he wasn't a very nice animal, I did like the dog battle. I can imagine every time they showed him, the dog handler right over the shoulder of the actor, giving that cue for him to bare his teeth and act real mean. But I bet you he was the nicest puppy in the world, and you could just sit down and pet him for days and days. But he did look very vicious indeed, almost like a beast out of hell or something. But I'll have to say Louise, simply because I do like Haley Steinfeld as an actress. That brings us to 8 o'clock. This is Memorial Day weekend.
Yes, it is.
If you have anybody that you're remembering this weekend, our thoughts are with you. And this is a weekend to remember those who we have lost, friends, family, and maybe even people we just don't know. So just make sure you take a moment this weekend to kind of reflect a little bit on what service means and who's out there doing the service. Everybody will have a great
All right,
weekend.
have a great weekend. Good seeing you all again. Take care.
Definitely, and we'll see everybody next month, hopefully sooner
Yep.
rather than later.